Aristotle, the father of logic, what if thinking clearly feels boring at first, yet secretly becomes the most powerful adventure to your mind could ever carry, even when imagination begs to run wild in every possible direction? That question might sound strange, because children are often told that logic is stiff and serious, while creativity gets all the colorful fireworks and exciting sound effects. Aristotle, who once studied with Plato but did not always agree with him, noticed this same tension and wondered whether careful thinking could be just as exciting as wild dreaming. Instead of staring only at invisible worlds, Aristotle liked to look closely at what was right in front of him, even when it seemed ordinary and not very magical. He watched animals move, plants grow, people argue, and children ask questions, while quietly thinking that patterns might be hiding inside all that everyday chaos. To him, logic was not a cage for ideas, but a pathway that stopped thoughts from tripping over themselves. Imagine building a tower of blocks, where each block must sit firmly on the one below, or else the whole thing collapses in a very dramatic crash. Aristotle believed thoughts work the same way, because if one idea wobbles, everything above it becomes suspicious and shaky. This made him curious about how people decide something is true, especially when emotions shout loudly and facts whisper softly. He began asking questions about causes, reasons, and connections, even though those questions sometimes made conversations slower and more complicated. For kids, this feels like asking why a rule exists, not just memorizing it, even when adults seem impatient. Aristotle thought knowing why mattered more than simply knowing what, because understanding reasons helps thoughts travel safely from one idea to another. Still, his approach created a quiet conflict, because slowing down to think carefully can feel frustrating when excitement wants quick answers. Logic asks you to pause, check, and connect, even when your brain wants to jump ahead like a puppy chasing butterflies. Aristotle noticed that many arguments sound convincing at first, even when they quietly hide mistakes underneath fancy words. He wanted logic to act like a flashlight, not to blind people, but to help them spot holes in their thinking before falling into them. At the same time, too much logic can feel cold, especially when emotions and stories give life its warmth. This balance puzzled Aristotle as well, because he never wanted thinking to turn people into emotionless robots. He believed humans were both thinkers and feelers, and ignoring either side made understanding incomplete. Children experience this when they feel something is unfair, yet struggle to explain exactly why using words that others accept. Logic tries to build bridges between feelings and explanations, even though those bridges are not always easy to cross. Aristotle also believed categories mattered because sorting ideas helped the mind breathe instead of drowning in confusion. Grouping things together can feel comforting, yet it also risks oversimplifying a world full of exceptions. This creates another tension because neat categories feel safe, while messy reality refuses to stay neatly sorted. Aristotle knew this problem well, which is why he kept observing instead of trusting only neat theories. He treated thinking like gardening, where careful pruning helps plants grow stronger, but cutting too much removes life. Logic, in his hands, became a guide rather than a boss, even though later people sometimes turned it into strict rules. Children might notice how rules help games work, yet too many rules can drain fun from playtime. Aristotle lived inside that same question, wondering how much structure thinking truly needs. He believed learning happens step by step, where one idea prepares the ground for the next. This makes knowledge feel less like a lightning strike and more like a trail you slowly discover. However, trails can branch, twist, or disappear, which makes logic feel less certain than it appears. Aristotle accepted that thinking well does not guarantee perfect answers. Instead, it increases the chance that answers make sense together instead of fighting each other. Logic, then, becomes a habit rather than a final solution. Children practice this habit whenever they explain their choices, even when they change their minds halfway through. Aristotle would probably enjoy those moments, because changing your mind after thinking deeper is not failure. He believed wisdom grows when thinking stays flexible without becoming careless. This balance remains tricky because certainty feels comforting while curiosity feels risky. Logic stands between them, offering stability without promising safety. Aristotle's legacy does not force you to stop imagining, but invites imagination to bring a map. That map never shows everything, yet it prevents wandering in endless circles. In the end, logic does not tell you what to think, but challenges you to notice how thinking moves. The questions remain open because clear thinking does not close curiosity, but quietly invites it to go further.